I think it's a big problem because of who they need to protect, right? In this situation, in terms of the college campus, they're trying to protect Israel, right? They don't want this to get out of hand. In that scenario with Luigi, they're trying to protect their corporate donors, right? There's always people that parties they need to protect. And that comes down to like, okay, so who are the donors to your party? Like, who do you actually serve? Because I think we can probably all agree that most, if not all, politicians don't actually serve their constituents. They just serve the donors. And then to bring in another thing, that's why I think Massie is getting heat now from Donald Trump for not going along with the continuing resolution to fund the government, because he said, this is not what we're supposed to stand for. Like you said, you wanted to make a bunch of cuts, right? You have Doge coming in and you're making cuts across the board, supposedly, but now you've just are trying to pass a bill that's going to increase spending in the government. Why are we doing that? Which I think is a great point. So he actually stands for principle. And now because he stands for principle, well, he's no longer a part of the party and he needs to be primaried. There's another layer, added layer, more of a conspiratorial layer to this whole thing, is that Massie is like probably one of the few on the Republican side that is not bought out by AIPAC.
Just a quick break before this video continues. If you haven't signed up for Soju yet, go check it out, soj.oo. It's a social discussion platform that we've created. That's where the community is hanging out. Definitely worth checking out, soj.oo. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do it now.
And so there's another reason that, maybe they want to oust him there. Maybe it's not because of this continuing resolution bill, because that bill passed even without his support. It didn't need his support to pass it, and it did pass in the House. And so now some people are speculating, well, it's because Massie is pretty outspoken, America first. He's anti-Israel. He's not bought out, so we need to get rid of this guy. And I think one of the Israel lobby groups are now declaring basically we're going to spend unlimited money in the next primary to oust Massie. Which
I remember watching him on Tucker, and he said, and this is the first time, I mean, I knew it, maybe I felt it, but I never heard a politician say it before. He said, every single congressperson has an AIPAC handler.
Yeah.
Except me. And I was like, wait, do they all? I started looking around like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's true. Every single one has one. And then all of a sudden, all the people that are conservatives, they start going after Massie after that, and just been piling on ever since. Like, he said the quiet part out loud, and ever since that moment, it's just been building and building against him. So I kind of agree with that conspiracy side, because you see the momentum building up against him. And then all of a sudden, Trump goes out of his way to say that I'm going to lead the charge to primary him. I'm like, you're the president. You have other things to do, not lead the charge against a congressperson that people actually like and his constituents like.
Who actually agrees with all of your principles. The funny thing is that he agrees with almost every single conservative principle in regards to like cutting the deficit, right? He wears the debt clock with him all the time. He's like, he actually believes, like, hey, government spending is out of control. We're going to like go into a debt spiral. It's going to destroy this country. And he's for Doge, which is one of the biggest things that Trump is trying to do right now, which is basically cut it. He's for that. He's a fan of Elon Musk. I think I heard that he was one of the first people in Congress to buy a Tesla. So he's like pretty much all in on you, but he has principle. And so he says, hey, this bill actually does the opposite of what you're telling the American people. Like, we're saying, hey, government spending is out of control. We need to cut the spending. And he said this bill will actually increase spending, and it will, I don't know, some number like add $20 billion to the debt, or I don't know what the number is. And he's saying, I don't want to do that. And now he's getting, like you said, he's now being faced with a primary challenge from Donald Trump himself when it was not necessary, because they did not need, because I can understand, it's like, hey, we need Massie to pass this bill. And so I'm going to apply maximum pressures to get this bill through. But the reality is they didn't need Massie. And so you could have allowed him to kind of do his thing and still pass the bill. So then my brain, starts to turn and say, okay, is there another reason, logically speaking, why they maybe they want to use this as an example, and then because of some other issue to oust him from government?
There are people out there. There are people out there that are going, what Trump is doing. Some people are saying that what Trump is doing is that he is using a spotlight to highlight Thomas Massie, and now because of his spotlight on Thomas Massie, that everyone's thinking about AIPAC. And actually, this is his way to expose AIPAC. Some people would say.
And some people may be right. I mean, maybe
It's not impossible.
right. And maybe I can see that as a byproduct, as something that comes out of it. I'm not sure if that is his intention, but you can certainly argue that that'll be the result, right? Because you came up with the example earlier. Say, hey, don't look at something.
Yeah.
Or we need to get rid of somebody.
Yeah.
Then people will start looking at, well, why do we need to get rid of this guy? And then you'll dig and the truth will come out. So I think it's a kind of a dangerous game that they're playing. I think, if we want to just dive into this issue, I think it's a dangerous game that Israel is playing in its entirety. Because I think, part of the effectiveness of AIPAC and the rest of the Israel lobby apparatus is that it was done in secret for a very long time, right? People didn't know about it, right? Or at least the general public didn't know about it. And now more and more people are finding out about it. And I don't think the majority of Americans like the idea of being controlled by a foreign government, right? If you replace Israel with like China, let's say, if there's a strong China lobby, I don't think people would accept that situation. So I think they're playing a dangerous game because at some point, if we still believe that this is a democracy, at some point the people will speak up and say, "Hey, I don't want this Israel thing anymore. Like, we need to get rid of these ties." And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Trump, in his address to Congress last week, mentioned Israel one time, and it was only in reference to how, hey, the United States, we need to strengthen our military. We should also have some kind of Iron Dome. He called it a Golden Dome, which is kind of hilarious.
Golden Dome.
Yes, we need to do a Golden Dome. And that's the only time he talked about Israel. He didn't talk about Gaza. He didn't talk about anything about sending weapons there, even though he's doing it, because he knows it's deeply unpopular, or it's becoming more unpopular. And that's one of the skills that I credit Trump with, is knowing what the mass majority of Americans want and where the public is going. So I think the public is moving in that direction of like awakening to this issue, where there seems to be a lot of influence coming from a foreign entity here. We don't like that. So I think it's, back to the original point, a dangerous game that they're playing here, in that now they're becoming overt with this, right? Now they're overtly announcing, we're going to primary Thomas Massie. Not because he can't serve the constituents of Kentucky. It's because he is anti-Israel. How does that make any sense?
I mean, it's weird because the congressman's job is to represent the constituents and the people, not represent the party and the people in power. And they want to primary him because he's trying to represent his constituents and the people,
right?
And not falling in line with the party and the people in power. But that's what you want. Even if it's a congressman that you don't agree with, every congressperson should represent what their community wants. And for some reason, people in other parts outside of Kentucky are like, this guy needs to fall in line. No, like, he's supposed to do what he's supposed to do, which is represent parts of Kentucky. Well,
that's a very rare thing in Congress, to actually represent your constituents, right? Because you have all kinds of different issues. One I covered recently in Northern California, where the congressman actively worked against his constituents to basically take land or away from farmers, right? They basically wanted to return the land to like federal. They wanted to basically get rid of these farms that are currently technically federal land. They were offered, this is kind of an aside, but they were offered leases a long time ago when they made that federal land. They say, hey, you can lease this in perpetuity from us. But then they started getting pressure from environmental groups to say, no, we don't want these farms here anymore. And so they actually sued the federal government. And then the congressman, even though he got a lot of pushbacks from his own constituents, said, no, we're going to get rid of this. So I think it's quite rare. I think Massie, unfortunately, is quite rare in Congress, where the member of Congress actually represents constituents. Could you say like Nancy Pelosi represents her constituents? I haven't seen her do anything for San Francisco. I don't know what she's doing over there.
Yeah, when I'm not like the biggest Marjorie Taylor Greene fan, but she's not mine, but she's maybe a county and a half over. So she's maybe 30, 40 minutes from here. And I've been into that area at different events or rallies or whatever. And when she comes out, her constituents absolutely love her. And I'm like, I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but her constituents do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's how it's supposed to work. Is that I don't agree, but the people that she represents agree. And she's doing exactly what they want her to do, which is like cause problems. And if that's her role and that's what they send her for, then she should probably do that actually, you know? And that seeing that interaction, seeing how they embraced her really changed my viewpoint on what actually congressmen should do. You know, some people, they send their congressman and what the constituents want is stay out of the news, get to work, build bills. Some people are like, go to Congress, throw a bunch of grenades, be a huge problem because we're pissed off. Why don't you go piss off everybody else? That's what they want. And then that's what they should do. That's what they're voting for. So when people in Kentucky, they're like, well, Thomas Massie, go to Congress. We don't care if it's popular or not. Do the right thing. What we believe is the right thing, then that's what he should do. And for the government and Trump and people around that say they believe in freedom and they say believe in people to say, no, like that's against us. I think that's bullshit, by the way.
I would agree with you 100%. But it's, and then that's, you know, I in terms of like talking about solutions, right? I think one of the, because people throw these, you know, talk a lot about all these issues with America. Like we have to divest from all this money flowing into politics. I don't think like one of the biggest determinants of like who wins is like how much money they raise. So then if that's the case, then they're just going to represent. If I give you $1 bajillion, Matt,
I'll take it.
You're going to be, yeah.
I'll take it.
But you're going to be
I'll kiss the
beholden
wall.
to me.
Give me a bajillion.
And that's the issue, right? It's like, how can they effectively govern for the people if they are representing somebody else? And that's the hard truth, because like, are you going to really be able to cut off, you know, the hand that feeds you? And you know, that's going to be difficult. But I think that if we want to like restore the nation, quote unquote, to me, that is the biggest thing, to like return politics to what it once was, which is like, hey, people should serve their constituents. They vote, like, that's the representative, you know, democracy or republic or whatever people want to call it. That's what they're supposed to do. And if you stop them from being able to do that, that's the whole thing kind of falls apart. And this is where, to your point too, it's like, I don't care if I agree with Massie or Marjorie Taylor Greene or AOC or whoever those guys are, but if I see that you're representing your people, okay, then I'm fine with it. And then let's duke it out. Let's hopefully the ideas will then be the most important thing. It's like your ideas, you know, let's say Medicare for all. Another idea is we're going to do private health care. Then the ideas can actually be litigated versus, whichever side has the most money, that side wins.
I agree completely. I think that we need to get back to the Congress people actually representing us, our leadership actually representing us. It's so weird how the system has gone, because again, people that were considered conservative or libertarian, we had this kind of worldview that we wanted. And as soon as we have the opportunity, we do the same shit that we hated. You know what I mean?
I think that's how power works, though. You know what I mean? It's just like,
it's like you can't shut people down. You can't label people.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't believe anyone that disagrees, they label a racist, a rapist, a misogynist, whatever, and they're just weaponizing it. And then now it's like, oh, terrorist. Thanks for watching the clip. If you want to see the full episode, click here. If you want to see more clips, click here.